Welcome to the iNETrepreneur radio show. We are so honored to bring you your host, the ultimate celebritypreneur, connecting businesses and celebrities worldwide. Winner of the Networking Organization of the Year, best-selling author, magazine publisher, trainer, and owner and founder of Network Together and the iNETrepreneur Media Network from magazines, TV, and radio network. We're excited to bring you your host, Mr. Robert W. Jones.
Happy Thursday, everyone. And it's so great to be back. And living here in Phoenix, Arizona, I actually woke up this morning. It was actually under 90 degrees when I took my son to his morning baseball practice. Usually here lately, it's been like, well, maybe, right around 100 degrees. So to have an 89-degree morning, I felt like I was in paradise. But I want to welcome you to the iNETrepreneur radio show. Your host, I'm Robert W. Jones. I'm owner and the founder of the iNETrepreneur Network. And also, the chief bottle washer of the Art of Connection book series, the most popular heart-centered entrepreneurial book series in the world, according to our friends over at Amazon. And with that, I am so delighted to say, with that, our authors become international bestsellers in an award-winning book. And for more information, you can go to 365 days of gratitudequotes.com. That's 365 days of abundancequotes.com to reserve your page. Also, please go to Facebook. It's facebook.com/iNETrepreneur radio or youtube.com/iNETrepreneur radio. And please give us your likes. We want to know that you like us because, we love you and we would love for you to, correspond through there. Also, you can also go to our magazines at iNETrepreneurmagazine.com or thecontemporarywoman.com. We have two magazines. They're in digital form and print on demand. And with those magazines, you can learn a lot about our community members and some of the goings on that are happening in our community. And lastly, I always save the best for last. It really is all about the connections. It's all about the people and the conversations that we have that lead to commerce. Please go to ntevents.net. That's ntevents.net. That is the place where you can find over 1,000. I kid you not, over 1,000 in meetings and events each and every year to connect. There is something there for you. And I'm really excited because one of my best friends is here today, and I'm going to introduce him right now. His name is John Verrico. How are you, John?
I'm outstanding, Robert. If it were any better, I'd have to be twins to enjoy it.
Well, you know what? I'll take a twin of you because you're amazing. You're a great person, and what I love about you is there's not a lot of people in this day and age that do what they say and say what they do, but you do that with a little bit of extra, as my kids would say. So I'm going to start calling you John Extra Verrico, because you do the extra things which really matter. John, he is owner and founder of Share Your Fire. He's a Navy veteran, keynote speaker, trainer, coach, best-selling author, including being in the Art of Connection a few times now. You can reach him at john@johnverrico.com. That's john@johnverrico.com, or call him at 240-257-6373. And what does that 6373 stand for, John?
It stands for nerd. How could you forget?
Oh my gosh, that is too funny. John, I've had you on the show, a few times, and so a lot of people know your background. They know your military career. They know that you've been a journalist, but there's other things that they don't know about you. And one of the things that I say is by the time you're 50 years old, if you haven't lived 5 lifetimes by then, you just haven't lived enough life. And my friend, you have lived those 5 lifetimes and more. And some of the things it says that you've been a janitor, an electronics technician, an actor, a cook, a consultant. But what I am most impressed with is that you are a disco dance instructor. Oh my gosh, if variety is the spice of life, I want to hear about your disco dance instructor days.
Sure, pull out the most embarrassing period of my life. No, I'm kidding. You know, Robert, it's funny. I was a little kid in school, and so I didn't have a lot of self-confidence. And then coming out of high school in the 70s and going into college, and that was also during the middle of the disco era. And I was watching, like I said, being the little guy, I didn't get a lot of dates. And I was watching all the guys get the dates because they could dance. So I always watch American Bandstand and Soul Train and all those shows, and I'd watch these cool moves, and I started practicing with like a chair at home. Yeah, just tried, and I kept trying new things, and I hung out with a really good looking guy, because then we would go to the clubs and the girls would be attracted to him, but there's always like an extra girl at the table,
Right.
So, hey, want to dance with me? Can I just fill in until Kevin's ready? And so, so then I would get out there and I would bust out like some really special move that I had created, and somebody would go, "Hey, that was cool. Do that again. How'd you do that?" And then I just it evolved from there, and I wound up actually teaching competition disco through the late 70s until I joined the Navy.
Well, I would definitely say that's a little bit of variety in the spice of life, as we say it. With all the experiences you've had, you did have 42 years in what I would say the quasi-governmental realm, from military to, other government positions that you've had. But one of the things I think that we find in this day and age is, people so much of the time training for the shiny objects. And what I mean by that is, they go and they get their speaker training, and they get their leadership training, and they get their sales training, and they get their coaching, and they, it's all about this becoming your best self. But one of the things I like to look at is, what about our obligations? What about our duty? What about being our best selves when no one else is looking? Many times your best self's the two ends of the Tootsie Roll, but what about that meat in the middle? And one of the words that I've been training on in my entrepreneurial classes is the word obligation. And for a lot of people, obligation is a word they just don't want to hear. Oh my God, obligation. It means that you're committed to something. It means that, you have to have a duty. It means that you have to honor, your word. And to me, that's not a dirty word. That's actually a word to me that means that you have a debt of gratitude because someone's provided, maybe money or time or some type of trade for you to do your end. Why is obligation, in your opinion, John, such a dirty word now, when it actually is the word that is where the meat gets done?
It's interesting, Robert, because so many people feel that obligation means you have to do something.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not really what the world is about. You don't have to do anything. You want to think about it. You get to do things. It's not necessarily something you have to do. It's something you get to do. It's something you have you have an obligation, yes, but you also have an opportunity. And that's how I've always looked at it. Coming off of the disco era, I realized that I was pretty much unhireable because I didn't really have any real skills. I mean, yeah, I could dance, but I enjoyed that period of time, but I needed some discipline, and I really didn't know what to do about that. I went back to school for journalism, and I was a good writer, but I just wasn't disciplined. And so I joined the military with the objective of getting discipline in my life so I could get up in the morning and be a responsible adult. And I quickly realized that there was a lot more to this whole military thing, this whole Navy thing.
Right.
And I felt obligated to continue to be part of a team, not just, when I was a dance instructor, I was all about them. I didn't really care for the glory for myself. I wanted them to be the winners, in the competition stuff. And I felt the same way when I went into the Navy. I was in charge of troops, and I was still a junior petty officer myself, but we were working for each other, and we were obligated to keep each other safe and obligated to help each other be successful.
And you said something really early on there. See, I think we tend to forget an obligation can be an obligation you have to do, But then there's also the place of an obligation can be something that you want to do. If you're an opera singer, your obligation is to show up on Saturday night from 5 to 7, and you're obligated to sing, but it's a want to obligation. And I think that that's what happens sometimes. If you're chasing your passions, you're utilizing your gifts, in your making the world a better place. There's nothing better than having to do the obligations, because what you're really doing is you're living your gifts, aren't you?
Oh, absolutely. And that's the whole thing of all of it, right? We realize we have an obligation, but it's because we have willingly taken that obligation on.
Like my dad always told me, he's like, sometimes when you're obligated to things that you just don't want to do, but you do them anyway, the taste of doing the obligation of the things that you really want to do become that much more easier to do.
Much sweeter.
And a couple of places that I've really been very happy that I get to be a band of brothers with you again is something called Fighters for Hope.
Yes, thank you.
And we're both on the boards of Fighters for Hope. Let everyone know out there in our radio land, what is Fighters for Hope, and why do you feel obligated, or in other words, why do you want to be a part of Fighters for Hope, and why does it matter so much to you?
Robert, I mentioned the fact that I learned about taking care of each other in the military, and I also have learned and lost several friends to the horrors of suicide. And it is a tragic thing that I don't think anybody should ever experience. I mean, I don't want anyone to feel that level of despair. And then, the terrible trauma that is for the survivors of it as well. And so I've always wanted to try to help people avoid that depth of despair, kind of keep away from circling the drain, so to speak. My whole career, my whole life has been focused on that. I was a bullied youth. I don't want to see people bullied. And so because that helps, that destroys their self-esteem. And every one of us matters and needs to realize that we matter and we have such potential. And so I've always been I've always felt obligated to help people, to keep them out of that hole. What Fighters for Hope has brought me is the opportunity to do that on a larger scale. I mean, we've been in this space. I've been coaching and a speaker and trying to help people with leadership and communication skills and work-life balance and resilience and all that stuff, which kind of, the underlying theme of that is to help them be successful and to realize they matter and to shine and to show their fire and to get their fire lit and get it out there. Yeah. But that was the underlying cause. Working with some of the other experts who are also have been in this space, Buddy Thornton, Randy Blake, Eric Ranks, yourself, we're out there, and we've combined our forces, and we can get out there and really focus on getting programs for the public and for veterans and for first responders and for people who are stuck in some transitionary state, like athletes who've aged out or somebody who's become injured and can no longer do the work or thing that they were passionate about before. All of that stuff, we can do that together. We're out there doing mental health awareness and suicide prevention programs and anti-bullying programs in schools and all of that. And it is the most rewarding work of my entire career in life.
Yeah, it matters so much, but the last part, I wanted to talk about is really just the Art of Connection, the Art of Connection book series and what that has meant. And Naheed Oberfeld and Mika Cross, those are two people that you know and you've brought into this series. If it wasn't for this series of connection, I would not know you. I would not know Naheed. I would not know Mika if it wasn't for this, book series. And I bring that up because, sometimes, we forget how powerful our connections are and what roads these connections can lead to. What makes it so powerful for you, John, and why do you continue to keep being in the Art of Connection book series?
I'm going into my 4th edition, no less. It was in the 365 days of inspirational quotes, transformational quotes, gratitude quotes, and going into the abundance quotes. and that was also why I reached out to others to join this, because I have found this group, this network of authors who have devoted their time, their positive energy, and their love for the world into producing these books and into the words that they put on these pages and share. I have met some of the most wonderful people on the planet. That is how I got connected to my fellows in Fighters for Hope. It was through the Art of Connection. Most of them are also authors in this book series. And also, I have found that even if the people that we meet in networking, we're always kind of hoping to get some business out of it, right? I mean, that's part of what networking is about. And I have found more collaboration partners, and I've gotten more business and more also really close friendships out of all this. And it's the relationships that matter the most to me. And I have met some of the best people on the planet through this book series. You have a remarkable talent for finding some of the most heart-centered, warm people out there on the planet and bringing them together. And so I love being part of it. And that's why I reached out to Mika, because I know her a little bit longer, and asked her to join us. And Naheed, I was fortunate enough to meet through another person that I had been talking to. So again, connection, and that truly is the art of connection.
It truly is, John, and I feel the same way about you and the people that we bring in. It's not about demographics anymore. It really is about psychographics, and having that heart-centered space. We all share it, and how can we not come together? Because we have the same alignment, we have the same beliefs, and we have the same love for the fellow people around us. Again, everyone, I am with John Verrico of Share Your Fire. He's a Navy veteran. Thank you, Navy. A keynote speaker, trainer, coach, international best-selling author. You can reach him at John, that's John at John Verrico, that's VERRICO.com, or just call him. He's brave enough to have his number on here. It's 240-257-6373. John, thank you so much for being on today.
Hey, I love being here. Thank you so much, Robert.
I appreciate you. And you know what? I always love to say this. Let's do it again sometime.
I'm here.
Wow. Again, I was with John Verrico of Share Your Fire. He's a Navy veteran, keynote speaker, trainer, coach, international best-selling author, and in the Art of Connection, as I understand now, 3 going on 4 times. You can reach him at johnverrico.com or call him at 240-257-6373. John, thank you so much for being on today. I appreciate you. And now I'm coming to our next guest, and I'm really excited to bring her on the show. This is a she's a first-timer on the iNETrepreneur Network Radio, and I am with Naheed Oberfeld. Naheed, welcome to being on the show today.
Thank you. Talking about manifestations, we all manifested this moment. I can't wait to have this conversation.
Oh my goodness, I couldn't agree with you more. Everyone, again, I'm with Naheed Oberfeld at Oberfeld Coaching. She is a mindset coach for success and fulfillment. And certified EFT tapping practitioner. And I love that you do that. You can reach her at Naheed at Oberfeldcoaching.com. That's Naheed at Oberfeldcoaching.com, or call her at 301-633-0305. And, speaking of manifestations, Naheed, I really want to talk about something really quickly with you. One of the things that I found when we were going through COVID, and COVID was a really crazy time, and I can't wait to talk to Mika about this as well. But during the time of COVID, there was a lot of struggles, and there was a lot of uncertainty, and there was a lot of trying times for many of us. And during that time frame, there were certain words that entrepreneurs were actually searching out there. One was financial, one was fun, one was family, and the other word was fulfillment. Entrepreneurs in this time of introspection, they were actually going to Google and they were looking how can I be fulfilled? And what I mean by that is what they were manifesting, what they were reaching for is, I have this little break. I may be, not in the office space. I'm in the home space, and I'm looking around me, and it's am I living a fulfilling life? Am I feeling like I'm a good dad or a good mom or a good son? Am I community minded? Am I really, utilizing my gifts that God gave me in the right way? And when you say that, you're a fulfillment coach, I couldn't think of any word better than that. Tell us about why you state that you're a fulfillment coach, and how did that come about?
Yeah, thank you for asking this question. Nobody's asked me that, but it is a profound reason as to why I became a coach. So I didn't become a coach during COVID, but I did become a coach during another global crisis. If we go all the way back to 2009, 2010, and the financial crisis. So I was in the finance world, and as you may remember, that exploded, right? Exploded, imploded, everything. And that was a time when I had to ask myself, do I want to continue living this life? I was 35 at that time. And the question was, can I handle the stress, the pressure, certainly the lack of fulfillment, even though that's not the word I used? We only notice the lack of fulfillment. We go for fulfillment after we feel unfulfilled, right? Nobody thinks about fulfillment on a regular basis unless they wake up in the morning almost every day saying, this doesn't feel right, and I want something different. I want something more. And that's how I got into this space. I tell people I didn't come to coaching because that was a grand plan. I did it kicking and screaming because I had to learn that, hey, my path of fulfillment is working with my skills and strengths, which was not being in an analytical, accounting and finance based world. It took a while for me to get to that place. And it's true for everybody. The mindset for fulfillment is very different.
Well, and it's really interesting to me because you were a senior valuation analyst, and a lot of people don't know quite what that is, but what you're really doing is you're manifesting financial numbers on an IP, on a division, on a structure, on something that you're going to attempt to get some type of a return back over a certain amount of or time frame. And it's interesting because when I was reading about you a little bit, I kind of thought to myself, I can see where manifestation comes into that, because if you're really good at evaluating, you have to go beyond the numbers, don't you?
Yeah, there is something in finance called future cash flow. In other words, you have to project what you think is going to be the best case scenario. And it is very much a manifestation process, because even though it's all about numbers, you cannot figure out what that future cash flow, because you haven't gotten there yet. So you have to anticipate what's the best way this company is going to grow and move forward. So you're absolutely right.
And another space too is if I could do everything over again, I would somehow I don't know, I'd be a poet. I'd be living on the side of the hill. I'd be writing poetry, and people would come all around, and I'd have my I'd have my little coffee shop on one side, and I'd have my little rock shop on the other, and sell to tourists. But I haven't gotten there yet, but maybe I'll look like Father Time one of these days. But one of the things I'm always very, very specific on is I love defining words. And in our society, I have found that we've become very, very, very sloppy with our words. Words, and sometimes almost don't even have meaning to people sometimes. And we throw around words, and we label people with words. We label our business words. We say we're doing stuff that we can't even fulfill or can complete our obligation to. But one of those words that I look at with you is the word manifestation. You know, I guarantee you, if I go an audience of 30 and I ask them, what is manifestation? I'm going to get 30 different definitions on what manifestation is. But what I want to do with you is I want you to define manifestation for us so we can have a clear vision and align with it if we would choose to do so.
Yeah. And great question again, Robert, because here's the trick. Manifestation is something we do every day, all day, right? The house we live in, the business that we have, or the work that we're doing, whether we like it or not, right? Some things we love, some things we don't. So for me, the definition of manifestation is, are we being conscious about it? Because back in 2010, 2009, actually, I had to make a conscious decision. I didn't like the life I was living, okay? I couldn't blame it on any one thing because it wasn't something external. I needed to make a change. And in order for me to do that, I needed to start with a conscious decision. Even though I didn't know what it was going to look like and how that's going to turn out in the end, manifestation, everybody manifests, but for it to be fulfilling, you want it to be conscious. You want to be able to say, oh, look, I thought about that, and this is what has come out of it. We talked earlier about this book, and we talked about how I met John. I got this call from one of my friends, and she's like, you just have to be on this book. I wasn't thinking about writing a book or co-authoring a book, but I was thinking, how do I get my message out? And out of the blue, or so you might think, this conversation happened, right? Same thing when you and I called, and I called you up, and you're like, I don't normally pick up numbers from numbers I don't recognize, but you picked it up at what, 6 o'clock in the morning Pacific time.
6 o'clock at a.m. I was like, okay, I guess I better pick this up. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I couldn't imagine a scenario like that. So once we're in alignment with what our overall goals are, the manifestation by the energy will lead you to where you need to be. You don't have to be really specific. I want this, I want that, I want the other. But if you can manifest greater opportunities, a fulfilling life, it then brings you to that place.
You know, but the mind is a very interesting place. And, you know, many times, you know, when it comes to the mind, you know, we're manifesting, but we are actually manifesting orphaned thoughts, you know, where we should really be manifesting over here. We actually kind of deceive ourselves because we feel like we're not worthy of those manifestations. You know, what are some of the blocks that people have? What are some of the self tricks that people do to keep them from their greatest manifestations and their greatest self?
Yeah, that is it. You don't have any animal or any other being in nature that says, you know what, I'm not worthy of getting this water, getting this food, or getting something that they need, right? Nobody else in nature does that, or nothing else in nature does that. But humans, because of our giant brains, we have the capacity to actually block our own progress. So I'll say the first thing to understand is that what blocks manifestation is, like you said, resistance. I'll use that word. It's resistance because I don't believe. I don't believe I'm good enough. I don't believe I'm smart enough. I don't believe I'm capable enough. And I'll tell you a trick that I've been using a lot with my clients that they've found to be very successful. So if you are strongly tied to the statement, I don't believe, I can't get you to change it 100%. It's not possible, not immediately. But what I can do is I say, okay, if you don't believe that's going to happen, how about we insert the statement, I'm open to the possibility that. Is it possible that this could happen for you? I mean, maybe even 1% possible, 5% possible. And nobody has said that, you know what, it's impossible. It's never going to happen. There's no 100% guarantee that this is never going to work out in the way I would like to work out. So as soon as you start adding these terms, I'm open to the possibility, you're creating space, because something that I just recently learned is that anxious thoughts are treated the same way as addictive thoughts in our brain. So we actually get addicted to our anxious thinking.
Well, you know, in being addicted to our anxious thinking also sabotages really every action that we create, correct?
Yes. Yes, yes. So I'll tell you a quick story. I'm a Toastmaster, and I was competing in one of the competitions, and I was very new in this competition. And somebody walked in, and he was talking about he's a 30-year Toastmaster veteran. He's won every competition that ever existed. And as I'm listening to him, and I'm one of the contestants, I'm like, okay, why should I even bother? I'm certainly not going to make it. It's not going to work out in my favor. So I shouldn't even bother and try. And I caught myself. And that's what I said. I said, somebody has to win. And I'm open to the possibility that it could be me. And as soon as I said that, now I'm thinking from a success place because I had to actually do some practice work. So I was buckling down. We had 5 minutes to actually figure out and strategize what we were going to say. And I actually won. This
Oh,
30-year-old Toastmaster didn't.
I love it. And I think that you brought out something that's really interesting, and this is true in business too. Sometimes when you hear people and they brag and boast, what they do is they're also derailing you from an external standpoint. And what happens is you start actually focusing on what they say they're doing, and you don't actually focus on what you are doing. And I really applaud you for being able to do that and being able to take away. And that's one of the things in our life now. There is so much distraction in our life. A lot of us, and I say this all the time about entrepreneurs. I say we spend far too much time working on what we do, and we spend far too little time working on who we are. And that's why we need to have a safe, quiet space to just bring in from the universe the energy that makes us us. You already said that we are beings with our big brain. If we choose to use it, right? If we choose to manifest the use of our brain, we can do so much because of that. And I like to say, one of the things I've always said is I love people when they say they're being mindful and they start to begin the journey. And, for me, it's not just being mindful. It's about creating meaning from your mindfulness. And from that meaning, you get to thoughtfulness. And that's the actions that manifest from that original seed of thought. Tell us a little bit about, one thing maybe like that you work with your clients that help them just block that one, like we all have blocks and they're all a little bit differently,
Yes.
and you gave us one tip, but what's a big mistake that people do all the time and they don't even realize they're doing it?
Yeah, there are a couple of them. So the first thing is people think that if they are not actually getting to the goal that they're looking for, then it means that they need to do more. They feel like they need to compensate in some way or the other by trying something different. So first they went left, so now they have to go right. Then that doesn't work, they go forward. Then they go backwards. They don't stop and ask themselves, who am I being as I'm taking action? Am I being confident or am I being fearful? Is my internal expectation that something good's going to come out of it? Or is my internal expectation that from past experiences, I failed in this thing. So now obviously it means I'm going to fail in the new endeavor that I have. So that's number one. Stop trying to keep taking action when you haven't clarified the person first. So exactly what you're saying, you got to stop, you got to be first, right? You're a human being, you're not a human doing. We hear that a lot.
I love that. Say that again. You're a human being, you're not a human doing.
Yes.
Interesting. I really like that. Well, I wanted to finish off this segment as well, because part of this is about the art of connection and about the community that we're creating. And I'm grateful that you're a part of this community. I'm grateful that you get to share your voice, and I call it the theory of lights. If we can all raise our light together with each other, we can be seen throughout the universe. But if we all have them and they're all going in different directions, all we have is chaos. What were a couple of reasons that you said, what, I am going to be a part of the Art of Connection book series?
I liked what you said. It is a medium for people who are maybe one or two steps lower on the rung of the ladder, who are ready and open to hear these voices, right? I mean, that when I think about how did I get to where I got to and where I'm going to. It's because I heard somebody who went through a similar experience. They're a little bit further along. We're never over the hill, right? That only happens when you pass away. So we're just a little bit further along on that ladder. And I heard them and they said something that resonated with me and it opened my mind. And I thought that this is the perfect medium, right? So this was something that I was searching for, and I will continue to hope to contribute to because I think it's so meaningful. Because there are other contributors in there who I will get a lot of profound realization and insights from as well.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because here's something I remember. I wasn't going to do a second book, and I had a phone conversation with Mark Victor Hansen. And I hope he remembers this. I don't know. I'm friends with his son, so and things have changed in the last 4.5 years or so. And I remember I asked him. I said, "Well, you're on the top of the world. You've sold over 100 million books. Who do you look to?" And he goes, "I look to the very people who are starting for my inspiration." And he says, "That's how I complete the cycle, and that's how I get inspiration for what I do. I don't have to help everyone, that's in between. My goal is to help everyone who is starting." And I love that. I just thought that was really, really neat. So, Naheed, thank you so much for being on today. Everyone, I am here with Naheed Oberfeld at Oberfeld Coaching. She is a mindset coach for success and fulfillment. And I love that word. I'm just telling you that, fulfillment. She's a certified EFT and tapping practitioner. I'm going to bring you on so we can talk about that sometime as well, because that's powerful. You can reach her at Naheed at oberfeldcoaching.com or call her at 301-633-0305. Again, that is 301-633-0305. Naheed, thank you so much for being on our show today.
And thank you. I really appreciate this opportunity.
Absolutely. And like I tell the people who know me most, like Doritos, we can always make more. So I will find some time for you. Thank you, Naheed.
Thank you.
I love videos sometimes. That playing there, it just reminds me of all the people I know. And it's like, oh my goodness, I got to call her or I got to call him. And it's like, we got to get back together and let's have some fun. So it's so great sometimes when you see a video like that. And I'm excited. I'm excited for our next guest. But, certainly I just was with Naheed Oberfeld with Oberfeld Coaching. Thank you so much again for being on today. And I am here ready to bring on our next guest, Mika J. Cross. Hi, Mika. How are you?
I'm doing great, Robert. How are you?
I am doing so fine. I mean, after John and after Naheed, how can I not be any better, right?
Right.
and now I have you on our show. Everyone, I am with Mika J. Cross, and I'm going to find out what that J means. Mika J. Cross. You're like me, Robert W. Jones. What does that W mean, right? She is the owner and founder of Strategy at Work, and what at is the at sign. And so I'm going to put that out there. So Strategy at Work, LLC. She's an Army veteran, and she's a workplace and transformation strategist and futurist. You can reach her at info@mikacross.com. Again, that's info@mikacross.com. Or you can call her at 202-276-6754. And again, I'm so thankful that you're on with me today, Mika.
Thank you.
I haven't gotten to talk to you yet. And sometimes I enjoy just getting to know someone right out the gate. And I love that. I love females and women who are veterans. And one of the things being a Marine, I remember there was times I could go months without seeing WMs, is what we used to call them back when I was in. Now they're just Marines as well. And I am sure, in certain ways, there was challenges of being a female in still somewhat of a male dominated culture. Talk a little bit about, your time frame in the military culture, and maybe a couple of things that you brought from that culture that you apply, with your business today.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, I'm delighted to spend time with you and John Verrico, who are both veterans also. It's always an honor and a pleasure to share the stage with folks who have served as well.
Thank you.
My story is interesting, though. I started my service enlisted from my rural hometown in Maine. Not a lot of opportunities, unfortunately, in the state of Maine at that time for educated folks who kind of wanted to take the world by the horn and do whatever I could to shake it up a little bit. So I did enlist when I was 19 years old. And my first duty station, I landed at Fort Knox, Kentucky, working for the International Military Student Office called IMSO. Now, IMSO was the organization that would train NATO officers from overseas and take care of their families when they were training with the 16th Cavalry Unit there, which are the tankers. So I was in a support role there. But I learned very quickly sort of my place, political savvy, understanding the role of support when you are not a combat facing someone who serves, because at the time we didn't have as many opportunities as women do now. And I was given the opportunity to apply for what was called the Green to Gold Scholarship, which sort of identified high performing enlisted folks and allowed them to compete for a scholarship to become a commissioned officer, something I hadn't considered and didn't know it was even possible. So I was fortunate enough to have some great leaders there who identified the potential and told me about the opportunity. I applied for it, and I did. I won the scholarship and finished my bachelor's degree. Oddly enough, I thought I was going to go into journalism myself at one point.
Wow.
Decided to complete my bachelor's in mass communications, but ended up commissioning into the adjutant general field, which is personnel.
Yeah.
And so I was commissioned in the year 2000, and my first duty station, they sent me back with the boys at the 3rd Infantry Division, Rock of the Marne, Fort Stewart, Georgia, which is one of the most highly deployable units in the Army. And so I also learned a lot about different kinds of positions and roles, but I also understood the value of learning to be a good follower before you become a good leader.
Yeah, I love that. I have to jump in there. And one of the things I love to say is, I believe that as well. I believe to really truly be a great leader, you really need to learn how to be a great follower. And I say this because, readers are leaders, and leaders, we're lifelong learners. So readers are leaders and leaders are readers. But, but here's the thing that followers do best. And if they learn to lead, that's even better, is they learn to listen and see. And I'm glad you said that about following. I think sometimes we put so much emphasis on the shiny objects of work life, and we don't put enough value on the real meats and potatoes of the work life. So I'm glad you brought that up. So I just wanted to say thank you for saying that.
Well, thank you for bringing it up too. I think it is important to consider the power of active listening and those kinds of attributes as you bring them into leadership roles, whatever your role may be, whatever your job may be. So that is something very powerful to consider.
Now you're not in the military anymore. So there must have been some type of turn in your life where you said, I'm enjoying my career here, but it's now time for me to transition. And I work with a lot of military personnel myself. One of the reasons why iNETrepreneur Network exists is so we can take our corporate refugees and our military personnel and have them a place to land, because sometimes, especially if they go into entrepreneurship, they don't know where to start, who to trust, what to do, how to do it. And, quite frankly, learn how to fill their calendar, and that's a big one. Without a calendar of potential clients, you'll end up being out of business pretty soon. Tell us a little bit about what your transformation was like and why you transitioned out of the military.
Well, Robert, I think just like our other guests today in this segment, what they were describing, and I think what really resonates for me is this concept of ikigai, following our purpose, what we're really good at, and sort of what the world needs. And so if you look at my career, it really was nonlinear. All the decisions that I made at the time, I may not have been certain about it. At the time, there may have been risk and worry and concern about what the transition would look like. But I trusted sort of the universe to point me in the right direction of that concept of ikigai, right? Of following my passion, purpose, what I'm good at, but what I love and what the world needed. And so when I transitioned, I had just pinned on captain. So I was promoted a little bit early, if not right on time. It was after 9/11. I was serving in the United States intelligence community, and I had just given birth to my first child, my daughter.
Wow.
And I knew right away that I wanted to be a present mom. And that at that time, there was rapid deployments and a lot of need for us to lean in. And although my heart was there in the beginning, before I became a mother, I wouldn't have felt great about leaving my little infant baby aside and to go to a deployment. So I felt like it would be a good time for me to resign my commission. I had completed my master's degree. I had a lot of years of experience. I had worked in the top intelligence community with a top secret TSSCI clearance. And so the time was right? Sometimes it's about timing. And I had the opportunity to take a really high paying job in contracting or go to work for Uncle Sam out of uniform. And I chose to go to work for the federal government, working for the same intelligence agency that I had in uniform. So I took my uniform off and went back to work in civilian HR. And that's where I got my start learning anything and everything I could about federal civilian human resources and human capital management.
Well, and that's an outstanding role. And it's a very, I think, important role, because sometimes we actually don't think about, human resources in the federal government the same way that we do and maybe in corporate organizations.
Right.
And, the development of the human resources in our government is definitely very necessary. And if we do that, we're destined to fail if we don't. But, as you traveled through the HR career, from what it looks like, you started transitioning, and one of the big turns was probably right around COVID, wasn't it?
Yeah, but even before then, actually, I had spent my 20 years of service. I had worked in 6 different federal agencies, including uniform service. And I had an opportunity at that time to go to work for a fully remote company called Flex Jobs in the C-suite as their first vice president that they've ever had. And the thing about it was I had another child, and my youngest was 9, turning 10. I was navigating the special education system for him and single parenting at that time. So I wasn't a single parent when I transitioned out of uniform the first time, but all these transitions and these issues that had happened, really, I centered my career choices around my values and the kind of life that I wanted to provide for myself, for my family, and for others. So if I could affect others in a positive way, I did. And so I decided to take a leap of faith and go to work in private industry. And after that, made a few other different choices. And here I am now working for myself as an entrepreneur, self-employed as well. So I can pretty much check the box in every kind of transition that there possibly could be.
And what's so great about this is what I love, change creates opportunity. And that's why, for me, I love change. My dad used to always tell me, he said, just because it doesn't exist doesn't mean it's not necessary or needed. And, and that's what change does for us. It provides an open canvas for us to perform our art form or to create our art form in. And, one of the things it's the same way in my world. I was a computer programmer. I worked, for Intuit and GoDaddy and Realtor.com and Linsco Private Ledger and eFood Safety, Nuvalex out of Maryland, of all places. In my career, there's a lot of change in technology. There was a lot of ways that, legislation would change the way some of the things that we would do business. And, and I find it really amazing to me, like 4 years ago, having, the way that we do business differently with remote settings and being able to connect and being able to have oversight and to be able to like do training and development and, and how do you develop new standards? Because that's something else that a lot of times we don't talk about in as an entrepreneur is, what are the standards that we're even creating for us?
Right.
In our own business? Do we have standards in our own business? And I think that these are places that you probably know well, and you create positive workplaces to help the entrepreneur actually, rise and create standards so they can be better empowered, better entrepreneurs to be more productive, be more efficient, be more effective. I mean, these are some of the things that you do, correct?
Absolutely. I like to think that I help organizations embrace different ways of working to make work better, right? For all.
Right. Yeah. I love that. I love
We can't
that.
do it without the people, whether it's ourselves
Mhm.
as solopreneurs or whether we're leading huge teams and organizations. We need to understand how to inspire greatness and excellence from our companies, from our organizations, to be able to deliver excellent service to our clients and customers. And so my favorite thing in the world to do is to look at policies, programs, performance, and guess what? The people, and see
Yeah.
how they're all interrelated. And how can we have that growth mindset? Because we are evolving at a rate that we've never seen before. Once in a generation experience in changes to the way we work and live. And people are demanding different, and they're demanding better. And
Yeah.
so organizations either adapt to that or they're left behind.
Yeah, they become obsolete.
Exactly.
And I love that you say that as well, because one of the things that I've experienced in my world is there's a difference between freelancers and and solopreneurs and true entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs build IP concepts so they can be replicable, and they can live long after the entrepreneur is still a part of the company. Where freelancers, well, the company leaves with them. And one of the things I say is when it comes to actual the scalability and the growth of the company, one of the most vital times in that company is when you hire that first employee. And a lot of companies don't grow because of the fear of actually having to hire that first employee. Have you found that to be true as well? And could you talk about that for a second?
Yeah, absolutely. And, I've only been working for myself for a short time, full-time capacity, but I've
Right.
supported other entrepreneurs and other business owners in all industries and occupations. And so I think there's a really great quote that we can keep in mind, because I know your book includes a lot of those as well. And that is, there's no growth in your comfort zone, and there's no comfort in your growth zone. So taking that leap of faith and investing the scalability and trying to expand services, it kind of does depend on trusting yourself, trusting your business line, and then also trusting your next first hire, right?
Yeah.
And there's no other way to grow and scale, though, in that capacity, in my opinion. So I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Stepping outside of that comfort zone.
Yeah, you can scale with technology all you want to, but you're still going to hit a ceiling if you don't scale with people as well.
Yeah,
And
it always comes down to the people.
it always comes down to people. I always say until bots are buying your products or services at the other end, it all still boils down to people. Mika J. Cross, I appreciate you being on the show today, and I want to keep us in time and come through here. But you came into you brought it up. You brought up the book, The Art of Connection. So there must have been something there. You read maybe someone's page, or you just have a know, love, and trust of John Verrico. What brought you right? What brought you into the book, The Art of Connection? What made you say yes?
First, John Verrico. And second, it always comes down to John Verrico, okay?
John Verrico, yeah.
Second, I pride myself on being a master connector anyway. So when I saw the title of the book and dug in, I was like, oh, this resonates with me. I am a connector. I believe in uplifting other people. I believe there is a place and space for all of us. And I believe people who go into that with an open heart to share what they've learned and acquired only make the world a little bit better. So when John told me about the book and I took a closer look, I thought, I'm all in.
Oh my gosh. I am so glad you're all in. I appreciate it so much. Everyone, I am with Mika J. Cross, Strategy at Work, and that's the @ LLC. She's an Army veteran, workplace and transformation strategist and futurist. We're going to bring you back on. We're going to talk a little bit about that. You can reach her at mikacross.com. Again, that's info@mikacross.com. And it's spelled Mika. I just wanted to make sure that, all the little transcribers out there, the AI gets that right, Mika. Okay. I'm doing that for you. So info@mikacross.com, or call her at 202-276-6754. Thank you so much for being on our segment. And what I would like to do is, I don't want you to go away, because I'm going to bring back our other guests who have been on today. And I just wanted to kind of have a roundup with each other. And so, speaking of John Verrico, like the wizard, there he is.
Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
Oh, and also I want to bring Naheed Oberfeld here on the show. And I just wanted to say thank you so much. And, is there anything, I believe that every opportunity is a learning opportunity. And is there anything that you learned about yourself or someone else today that you might want to share?
Hey, I've got to say, I had not had, as you know, I have not had a chance to have a deep conversation with Naheed yet, but some of the things that she said today really amazed me. And it cracked me up, actually, when she said humans are the only animals that can block their own success. I'm like, oh, God, my goodness. That is just, that was really brilliant, because, and Mika knows this too, whenever we are facing anything or making a decision about something, what holds us back is our own self. We hold ourselves back from our own success. And when we're considering doing something, the first 10 things that come to mind are the last 10 times we failed. And so we talk ourselves out of doing things, and we don't perhaps take that leap that we should when the opportunity presents itself.
I love that. And, one of the things my mom taught me, she said, you can learn as much from someone who's learned something just by hearing what they've learned.
So brilliant.
And no, really. And she used to tell me that all the time. And I thought, I'm going to try that here, because my mom was a PhD in curriculum instruction. I mean, she was a pretty amazing woman herself. And it's just like, who am I not to listen to some of her words of advice? And so I want to offer up maybe, Naheed or Mika's, anything that you learned about yourself, or what the other guests had talked about.
I was going to actually bring up Mika's quote, but it took me a minute to think about it. You never grow in your comfort zone, and you're never comfortable when you're growing. And that is so true. And if we can keep that in mind, that everything is a process. We are evaluating midway in the process. We haven't evaluated at the end, where we're like, oh yeah, look how far I've come. So I actually like that a lot.
Yeah, I think that very much fits abundance as well. So I might even be looking for that quote, Mika.
Yeah, absolutely.
My goodness.
That's actually my favorite Mika quote, by the way.
Oh, yes, go ahead.
No, I just said that's my favorite Mika quote, actually, because I've heard you say that before.
It's not mine. I'm passing it along, actually. I'm someone else gave it to me, so it's a gift to all.
Well, thank you.
I want to highlight one thing as well, and that's from Naheed and John, and that is mindset. Mindset can make or break our success, our survivability, our viability, and also our positivity in terms of how we show up each and every day. So just the power of reframing and thinking about how our mindsets are so incredibly powerful in anything that we do in any sector of work. So I just want to echo all of the great insights that our wonderful guests had today. Thank you again for having me.
Well, I appreciate you all being on today. And just to end the show, Mika, what is the best way that we can get in contact with you besides the phone number and the email address?
Definitely LinkedIn. I am Work-Life Champion of the Universe. And that is my profile. We'll talk about that and my middle initial name at another segment.
Okay. I love that. I love that.
Very active on LinkedIn. That's where you can find me most.
All right. I'm with you. LinkedIn's my love language. I have to admit that. It really is. Naheed, any other ways that we can remain in contact with you?
Yeah, I'm going to go with LinkedIn as well. I'm actually on Facebook as well, but I've been doing these 2-minute videos every Monday on how to apply tips for stress management and manifestation. So all of that you can find on LinkedIn.
All right. Thank you so much. And John, we will give you the last word on how to find you.
And LinkedIn is my go-to as well, although I am also on Facebook as well and on Instagram. And every month I publish a challenge calendar that has some inspirational thoughts for every single day. And I will say that usually on the weekends of the calendar, we use quotes. And we've been actually going to the Art of Connection book series for sources of those quotes. So people who are in the Art of Connection book series are getting additional eyes on it through our social media posts on LinkedIn and Facebook with our challenge calendars. So please enjoy those.
Well, Aya, thank you. Again, thank you so much for all of you being here. We all have places to go and things to do, but you took this time and space to do it with each other and me. And I want to say thank you for it. Everyone who's watching, have a great week. We are here every Thursday, 2:30 to 3:30 Arizona time. Yes, we're that maverick state that does not have daylight savings. So sometimes we're on Mountain Time, sometimes we're on Pacific Time. Sometimes we just look around going like, what time are we on? So at any rate, please tune in next week. Everyone, thank you again for being here. Let's make it a great rest of the month. My goodness, we're going to be going into fourth quarter soon enough, aren't we?
Thank
Bye-bye,
you.
everybody.
Thank you so much.
You've been watching the iNETrepreneur Show, a production of the iNETrepreneur Radio Network with host Robert W. Jones. Join Robert each week as he visits with new and exciting guests who inspire, teach, and mentor entrepreneurs worldwide. Follow Robert each Thursday at 1:30 p.m. Pacific, 4:30 p.m. Eastern, and 8:30 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time.